Nathan Carr was 36 years old, a licensed civil engineer pulling $78,400 a year at Hargrove and Dunn Infrastructure in Charlotte, North Carolina. He drove a 2019 Honda Accord with 67,000 miles on it, lived in a 3-bedroom colonial they'd bought in 2020 for $289,000 in the Mint Hill neighborhood, and had exactly $14,312 in savings, $41,000 left in his 401k, after Vanessa had convinced him to take a hardship withdrawal last year for what she called an emergency dental procedure that cost $9,200 out of pocket. He'd never seen the receipt for that procedure. He never asked for one. That was who Nathan was. The kind of man who trusted the woman he married so completely that asking for proof felt like an insult to the life they'd built. He would think about that receipt later, lying motionless in a hospital bed at Atrium Health Carolina's medical center, tubes snaking from his arms, monitors beeping a rhythm that sounded nothing like the life he'd been living 23 hours earlier. He would think about the $9,200. He would think about the dental procedure Vanessa never got. He would think about a lot of things he should have questioned years ago, but all of that came after. The accident happened at 6:47 p.m. on a Wednesday in the second week of March 2025. Nathan was driving home from a job site in Gastonia, a bridge rehabilitation project he'd been overseeing for 7 months. The contract was worth $4.2 million to the firm, and Nathan had been working 12-hour days to keep it on schedule after the county pushed up the completion deadline by 6 weeks. He was tired, not the tired where you yawn and blink hard. The kind of tired that lives in your bones, where your body moves on autopilot and your brain has already clocked out somewhere around mile marker 14. He was on I-85 eastbound, doing 62 in the right lane, when a Ford F-250 towing a landscaping trailer drifted across the center line. The driver, a 23-year-old named Curtis Vega who'd been looking at his phone, overcorrected. The trailer jackknifed. Nathan's Accord caught the swinging edge of it at the front passenger quarter panel, and the next 4 seconds erased everything orderly about his life. The Honda spun twice, clipped the Jersey barrier, and came to rest facing the wrong direction on the shoulder. The airbag deployed. The windshield didn't shatter but cracked in a spiderweb pattern that Nathan would later think looked like the inside of his marriage, something he couldn't see from a distance but had been fracturing for a very long time. The paramedics arrived in 11 minutes. Nathan was conscious when they cut him out, but only barely. His left arm was broken in 2 places, compound fracture of the ulna, 3 ribs cracked on the same side, a gash across his forehead from the steering column that would need 31 stitches. The real concern was the concussion. Grade 3, according to the trauma team at Carolina's Medical Center, where the ambulance delivered him at 7:34 p.m. They sedated him almost immediately for imaging. CT scan, then MRI. No brain bleed, thank God, but significant swelling that required monitoring. The doctors put him on a cocktail of painkillers and anti-inflammatory medication that could have tranquilized a horse. Nathan remembered none of this. What he remembered was waking up, not all at once. Not the way it happens in movies where the protagonist opens their eyes and the room snaps into focus. It was more like surfacing through layers of dark water. First came sound, the beeping, steady and patient. A distant intercom paging Dr. Ambrose to radiology. The rubbery squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum, then came sensation. The heaviness of his own body, the dull throb in his left arm that felt like someone had replaced his bone with a hot iron rod, the tape pulling at the skin on the back of his hand, where the IV needle lived. Then came her voice. Vanessa had arrived at the hospital 40 minutes after the accident. Nathan would learn this later from the nurse's notes. She'd been listed as his emergency contact, called by the highway patrol at 7:02 p.m. She'd arrived at 7:42, been briefed by the attending physician, Dr. Rajiv Anand, and told that Nathan had sustained serious but non-life-threatening injuries. The concussion was the primary concern. He was heavily sedated. It could be hours before he regained consciousness, possibly longer. They wouldn't know the full neurological picture until he woke up. What Nathan heard first, floating up through those layers of dark water, was Vanessa on the phone, not talking to a family member. Not calling his mother in Asheville, or his brother Daniel in Raleigh, or his boss Martin Hargrove to explain what had happened. She was talking to someone whose name Nathan had heard maybe a dozen times in the past year, always dropped casually, always accompanied by a wave of her hand, as if dismissing something unimportant. Derek. "No, he's out," Vanessa was saying. Her voice was low but not whispered. The voice of someone who believed they were speaking privately, with the confidence of a woman standing over an unconscious man in a dim hospital room at 11 o'clock at night. They're saying maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. The concussion is bad. They've got him on everything. He doesn't even twitch when the nurses come in. A pause. Nathan heard the tinny vibration of the other voice through her phone speaker, too faint to make out words, but enough to know the tone. Familiar. Comfortable. Intimate. "I know," Vanessa said. "I know, babe. I'm sorry I can't be there tonight. This is going to look bad enough without me disappearing from the hospital while he's in a coma or whatever they're calling it. Babe." Nathan's body didn't move, his eyes didn't open, his heart rate, tracked by the monitor beside his bed, increased by maybe 4 beats per minute. Not enough to trigger any alarm. Not enough for anyone to notice. But inside, something shifted. A tectonic plate of trust that had been the foundation of 9 years of marriage simply cracked down the middle. He kept his breathing steady, an instinct he couldn't explain later. Except that some part of him, some animal survival mechanism, understood that silence was more valuable than confrontation in this moment. That what he didn't say, what he didn't reveal, would matter more than anything he could shout or cry or accuse. Vanessa kept talking. The doctor said the arm is broken pretty bad. 2 fractures. He's going to need surgery, probably pins, and the ribs will take weeks. He won't be working for at least 2 months, maybe 3. Another pause. The voice on the phone said something that made Vanessa exhale through her nose. Not quite a laugh, something harder. "Yeah, I already thought about that. His short-term disability through work covers 60% of his salary for up to 12 weeks. That's about," she calculated in her head, "about $3,600 a month before taxes, which is basically nothing. The mortgage alone is $1,840. Nathan listened to his wife do the math on his diminished usefulness while he lay broken in a hospital bed, and something behind his closed eyes went very, very still. "Derek, listen to me. This might actually be the window we talked about." Her voice changed, dropped into a register Nathan had never heard. Not angry. Not sad. Strategic. "He's going to be home all day for months, recovering, dependent on me. If I start building the case now that I've been his primary caretaker, the one managing the household, the one making real money." She stopped, listened to something Derek said. "My base is $105,000 plus commission. Last year I cleared $128,000. He made $78,000, and now he won't even be making that. If we time this right, if I file while he's still recovering, still on disability, the income disparity will be massive. My attorney said a judge would look at current earnings, not historical. Derek, I could walk away with the house." Nathan's broken arm throbbed. His cracked ribs sent sharp needles through his left side with every breath, but he didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't open his eyes, because what he was hearing was more painful than any bone or any wound, and he needed to hear all of it. "No, I haven't called his mother yet," Vanessa continued. "I'll do that in the morning, play the worried wife. Cry a little. Janet already thinks I'm a saint for putting up with him. She'll tell everyone how devoted I am, which helps if this ends up in front of a judge." She was quiet again, listening. Then she laughed. A real laugh, light and easy, the kind Nathan hadn't heard from her in longer than he wanted to admit. "I miss you too. Friday, okay? He'll still be here Friday. I'll tell the nurses I need a night at home to rest. Come to your place. We haven't had a real night together since that thing in Hilton Head. Hilton Head, the pharmaceutical sales conference in October. 3 nights at the Marriott Resort and Spa, $379 a night, billed to Vanessa's company. She'd come home tanned and distracted, and had told Nathan the conference was exhausting but productive. She'd hit 112% of her Q3 quota. He'd taken her out to celebrate at Bonterra, the nice restaurant on South Tryon where they'd had their first anniversary dinner. The meal had cost $217 with tip. He'd put it on their joint visa. Vanessa had spent that dinner texting under the table. Nathan had assumed it was work. Okay, I have to go. The night nurse does rounds at midnight and I want to look like I've been sitting here the whole time. Love you? Yeah. Bye." The phone screen clicked off. The room settled into the rhythm of machines. Nathan heard Vanessa shift in the vinyl visitor's chair. Heard her open something, probably her purse. The familiar click of her compact mirror. Then a long, slow exhale. the sigh of a woman who was performing a role she found tedious. "Jesus, Nathan," she murmured to the room, to the man she believed couldn't hear. "You couldn't even get hit properly. A coma would have at least been dramatic." She said it the way you'd say something about the weather. Mild irritation. A complaint about a flight delay or a restaurant being out of your preferred wine. Nathan Carr lay in that hospital bed with a broken arm and cracked ribs and 31 stitches in his forehead, and his wife of 9 years was disappointed that he wasn't damaged enough to make her exit strategy cleaner. The night nurse came at 12:08 a.m. Nathan heard the door open, the soft greeting. "How's he doing?" the nurse asked. "No change," Vanessa said, and her voice transformed completely. Warm, worried, pitched slightly higher, the way people sound when they want you to know they're being brave. "The doctor said it could be a while. I just want to be here when he wakes up. You're a good wife," the nurse said. "Not everyone stays through the night. You should get some rest, though. There's a cot we can bring in." "Thank you, I might take you up on that." Nathan heard the nurse check his monitors, adjust something on his IV, and leave. Then silence again, Vanessa shifting in her chair, the muffled tap of her fingers on her phone screen. More texting, more Derek. Nathan lay perfectly still, eyes closed, breathing measured. His mind, despite the medication, despite the concussion, despite the pain that radiated from half a dozen places across his body, was sharper than it had ever been. Because everything he'd believed about his life had just been rearranged, and the new picture was clear in a way the old one never was. He thought about the weekends Vanessa worked late at the office. The phone she carried face down everywhere, screen locked with a 6-digit code she'd changed from their anniversary date to something he didn't know. The way she'd started going to the gym at 5:30 a.m. 3 months ago, coming home showered and energized with a glow he'd attributed to exercise. He thought about Hilton Head, about the $217 anniversary dinner where she'd texted under the table. About every conference, every late meeting, every girls' night that had felt slightly off but never enough to question. Because Nathan trusted his wife. Because Nathan believed in the life they'd built. Because Nathan was, as Vanessa had apparently calculated, the kind of man who never asked for receipts. The monitor beeped, steady, patient. Counting the seconds of a marriage that was already over, Vanessa fell asleep around 1:30 a.m. Nathan heard her breathing change, deepen, settle into the slow rhythm of someone who sleeps easily, untroubled by conscience or guilt. He listened to her sleep the way he'd listened to her sleep for 9 years, beside him in their bed, her body warm against his. Except now he understood that the woman sleeping 3 feet away wasn't the woman he'd married. Maybe she never had been. Thursday morning arrived the way hospital mornings do. Not with sunlight or birdsong, but with shift changes, the squeak of meal carts, and the antiseptic hum of a building that never fully sleeps. Nathan had been awake for hours. Awake in the way a man is awake when his entire understanding of his life has been dismantled in the dark, and he is lying perfectly still inside the rubble, listening for the next wall to fall. The day nurse introduced herself to Vanessa at 6:45 a.m. Her name was Claudette, Haitian accent, efficient hands. She checked Nathan's vitals, adjusted the drip rate on his IV, and noted on her chart that the patient remained unresponsive but stable. Pupils reactive. No signs of intracranial pressure. The swelling from the concussion was likely receding, she explained, but Dr. Anand would assess again during morning rounds. "Could be today," Claudette said to Vanessa. "Could be tomorrow. The brain decides on its own schedule. You talk to him, though. Even if he can't answer, sometimes the voice gets through." "I will," Vanessa said, her tone pitched perfectly between hopeful and exhausted. The devoted wife holding vigil. "I've been talking to him all night." Nathan felt a muscle in his jaw tighten involuntarily. He forced it to relax. The irony of Vanessa's statement was almost elegant. She had indeed been talking all night, just not to him. Claudette left. Vanessa's phone buzzed almost immediately. She answered on the first ring. "Hey, Mom." Not Derek this time. Vanessa's mother, Elaine Aldridge, a retired dental hygienist living in a 412,000-tout house in South End that Vanessa's father had left her before dying of a heart attack in 2019. Elaine was 61, sharp-tongued, and had never made a secret of her opinion that Vanessa had married beneath her potential. Nathan remembered the rehearsal dinner 9 years ago, when Elaine had pulled Vanessa aside and said, loud enough for him to hear across the patio, "He's a nice man, Vanessa, but nice doesn't pay for the life you want." Vanessa had told her mother to stop, had defended Nathan. had married him the next day with tears in her eyes and vows that included the phrase, "in every season of our lives." Nathan wondered now which season they were in, the dying one, apparently. "He's the same," Vanessa was saying. "Still out. The doctor says maybe today." "I don't know, Mom. It's been a long night." A pause. Elaine's voice, tinny through the speaker, carried the clipped cadence of a woman who organized her emotions the way she organized her spice rack, alphabetically and without sentiment. "I already called Derek," Vanessa said, lowering her voice slightly. "He knows. He's being patient. He said take however long I need." More from Elaine. Nathan couldn't make out the words but heard the approving tone. "No, I haven't talked to Janet yet. I'm going to call her this morning, play it by the book. Worried wife, crying, all of it. She adores me, Mom. She'll back me up in court without even knowing she's doing it." Janet was Nathan's mother, 63 years old. Retired school teacher living on a fixed income of $2,340 a month from her pension and Social Security in a small house in Asheville. She'd paid off in 2017. Janet Carr had raised Nathan and his brother Daniel alone after their father left when Nathan was 7. She'd worked double shifts, sold handmade quilts at craft fairs on weekends, and put both boys through college without a dollar of debt. When Nathan had introduced her to Vanessa in 2015, Janet had hugged her and said, "Welcome to our family. We don't have much, but what we have is real." Vanessa was now planning to use that woman's love and trust as a strategic asset in a divorce proceeding. "Mom, I know. I know he's going to be a mess when this happens, but the timing is what it is. Kendra said the best window is while he's still on disability, still not earning full salary. She said judges look at current financial snapshots, not potential. If I file in April, maybe early May, his income will show $3,600 a month versus my $8,700 after commissions. That's a gap you can drive a truck through." Kendra, Nathan filed the name. Kendra had to be the attorney, the one Vanessa had apparently already retained. The one already advising her on timing, on strategy, on how to maximize what she took from a man who was currently lying in a hospital bed with metal pins about to be drilled into his arm. "The house is in both names, but I've been the one making the higher contribution to the mortgage. My attorney says I have a strong case for primary residence, especially if I can show I was the financial anchor. And with his disability income, he's not going to be able to afford a second household anyway. Kendra thinks he'll agree to sell or sign it over just to avoid the fight." Nathan thought about the house. The $289,000 colonial in Mint Hill they'd bought with a $23,000 down payment, most of which had come from his savings. He'd put down $15,000. Vanessa had contributed $8,000. The mortgage was $1,840 a month. He paid $1,000, she paid $840. That was the arrangement. Not because he earned more. She actually out-earned him, but because he'd insisted on contributing more to the home he considered the foundation of their life together. She'd accepted the arrangement graciously, and he'd felt proud. The provider. The man who carried more than his share because that's what men like Nathan did. Now she was using the math against him. The $840 she paid versus the costs she'd cite. The commissions, the bonuses, the income that dwarfed his. She would frame it as her carrying him, the financial anchor. Not the man who'd shoveled the driveway every winter and replaced the water heater himself last August, saving them $2,200 in plumber fees. Not the man who'd spent 3 weekends rebuilding the deck because Vanessa wanted outdoor dinner parties. Not the man who delayed his own career development, turning down a senior project manager position in Raleigh that would have paid $97,000 because Vanessa didn't want to leave Charlotte. Because her career was here. Because Derek was here, though Nathan hadn't known that part at the time. "I have to go, Mom. The doctor's coming. I'll call you after rounds." She hung up. Nathan heard her stand, smooth her clothes, the click-clack of her heels as she stepped into the hallway to meet Dr. Anand, whose voice Nathan recognized from the previous night's sedation haze. "Mrs. Carr, good morning. How was the night?" "Long," Vanessa said, performing the sigh of an exhausted caretaker. "No change that I could see." "Let's take a look." Dr. Anand entered the room. Nathan felt the doctor's penlight sweep across his closed eyelids. Felt fingers press against his wrist, checking pulse manually against the monitor's digital reading. A hand squeezed his right hand. "Nathan, can you hear me? If you can hear me, try to squeeze my fingers." Nathan did nothing. Let his hand stay limp. Let his body remain the heavy, motionless weight of a man still submerged. But the decision to stay under wasn't calculated in the strategic way Vanessa calculated things. It wasn't about leverage or positioning, not yet. It was simpler than that. It was the understanding that the woman standing 5 feet from his bed was going to keep talking if she believed he couldn't hear. And that every word she said was a piece of a picture he desperately needed to see in full before he opened his eyes and changed everything. "The swelling is reducing nicely," Dr. Anand told Vanessa. "I'd expect him to start showing signs of consciousness within the next 12 to 24 hours. The surgery on his arm is scheduled for tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Dr. Bassett will be performing the procedure. Open reduction and internal fixation. 2 titanium plates, probably 8 screws. Recovery time for the arm alone is 8 to 12 weeks. And the ribs?" Vanessa asked, her voice a perfect calibration of concern. "Ribs heal on their own. 6 to 8 weeks, typically. He'll be in considerable pain for the first 3, limited mobility. He'll need help with basic tasks. Dressing, bathing, driving is out of the question for at least a month." "I'll take care of him," Vanessa said, and Nathan heard the words the way you hear a sentence in a foreign language. The sounds were familiar, but the meaning was something else entirely. Dr. Anand left. Vanessa returned to her chair. Nathan heard the soft tap of her phone screen, texting, the steady rhythm of someone composing messages she'd composed many times before. 20 minutes later, Vanessa left to get coffee from the cafeteria. Nathan knew this because she told the nurse at the station she'd be back in 10. The moment the door clicked shut, Nathan opened his eyes. The room was exactly as a hospital room should be. White ceiling, fluorescent lights dimmed to a low hum, the monitor to his right displaying his heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation. The IV stand with its clear bag dripping something into his veins, a window to his left showing a gray March sky, and on the vinyl chair beside his bed, a crumpled blanket and Vanessa's cashmere scarf, the sage green one he'd bought her for Christmas last year from Nordstrom, $89 on clearance. She'd thanked him and worn it once. He looked at the room for exactly 45 seconds, memorized it. The water pitcher on the tray table. The whiteboard on the wall where someone had written his nurse's name, Claudette, and the date. The call button pinned to his pillow. His phone, or what was left of it, in a plastic patient belongings bag on the windowsill. Cracked screen. Probably dead. Then he closed his eyes again, settled back into the practiced stillness, and waited. Vanessa returned with coffee. He smelled it. The hospital cafeteria's burnt roast, nothing like the $14 a bag Ethiopian blend she insisted on at home, the one she ordered from a specialty roaster in Asheville because regular grocery store coffee gave her headaches. Nathan drank Folgers from a can. He'd never minded. She sat, sipped, made a phone call. This time, it was to someone Nathan hadn't expected. His brother, Daniel. "Daniel, hi, it's Vanessa. I'm so sorry I didn't call last night. It's been..." Her voice broke, a perfectly timed fracture, like a pianist hitting a minor chord at the exact right moment. "He's stable, the concussion is serious, but they're saying no bleeding. His arm is broken badly, and some ribs. Surgery tomorrow." Nathan could hear Daniel's voice clearly. His brother was loud by nature, a high school football coach in Raleigh making $54,000 a year who communicated exclusively in the volume range between enthusiastic and thunderous. "What do you need?" "I can be there in 2 hours." "Should I call Mom?" I was about to call Janet. But Daniel, Vanessa's voice dropped, confiding, pulling Daniel into her orbit. "I need your help with something. The insurance company is going to want details about the accident, about Nathan's work schedule. I know he's been doing 12-hour days on that bridge project. If there's any chance this falls under workers' comp on top of the auto insurance claim, we should pursue it. Nathan's terrible about this stuff, you know that. He'd just say it was his fault and move on." "You're right," Daniel agreed. "He's too damn modest." "What do you need from me?" "Just be ready to help me push back if the insurance company lowballs. Nathan's auto policy has $100,000 in underinsured motorist coverage. The other driver's insurance is State Farm, and his policy limit is $250,000. Between the two, Kendra says we could be looking at a settlement in the range of..." She caught herself. The name Kendra had slipped out. Not as Nathan's insurance attorney, as her attorney. The attorney already advising on the divorce. The attorney whose name Nathan now had. Daniel didn't catch it. "Who's Kendra? A friend. She's a lawyer. She's been helping me navigate the medical bills. You know how Nathan is. He'd just pay whatever they told him to pay." I want to make sure we're protected. Protected. There was that word again. The way Vanessa used it, protection meant something different than what Nathan had always understood. He'd thought protection meant locking the doors at night and checking the smoke detectors and making sure the life insurance premiums were paid. Vanessa's version of protection was hiring attorneys he didn't know about to engineer a financial outcome that served one person. Just keep me posted, Daniel said. And Vanessa, thank you for being there. Nathan's lucky to have you. I love him, Vanessa said, and it was the most convincing line Nathan had ever heard. After the call, Vanessa was quiet for a while. Nathan heard the pages of a magazine turning, the muffled sounds of hospital life outside the door. Then, around 2:15 in the afternoon, her phone rang. She answered fast, voice low. Hey. Yeah, he's the same. The brother called. I handled it. A pause. No, Derek. I told you. Not until Friday. I can't just leave here. Another pause, longer. I know you miss me. I miss you too. But we have to be smart about this. 2 more months. That's what Kendra said. 2 months of me being the perfect wife, the perfect caretaker, building the record. Then I file. Nathan heard the leather of the chair creak as she shifted. The insurance settlement could be significant. Kendra's estimating between $175,000 and $280,000 depending on how the liability shakes out. If I time the divorce right, half of that is mine. Community property laws in North Carolina aren't as clean-cut as some states, but Kendra says with the right argument, especially about the income disparity and my role as primary financial contributor to the household, she stopped, listened to Derek. Yes, I know equitable distribution isn't the same as 50-50. Kendra explained that. But the point is, with his disability income, my higher earnings, and the house equity, I walk away with enough to start over. Start over with you. The click of her compact mirror again. Nathan had heard that sound 1,000 times, Vanessa checking her reflection, making sure the surface was right. The house is worth about $340,000 now. We owe $224,000 on the mortgage. That's $116,000 in equity. Plus his 401k, what's left of it, plus the insurance settlement, plus my savings that he doesn't know about. Nathan's breath caught. He controlled it instantly, keeping the rhythm steady, but the words had landed like a second impact. My savings that he doesn't know about. I've been putting away $1,200 a month into a separate account at First Horizon since last March. That's almost $14,400 so far. Kendra said to keep it in my maiden name. Elaine Aldridge is the secondary on the account, not Nathan. He has no idea it exists. A separate bank account. $14,400 saved from the marriage without his knowledge or consent. Money earned during their marriage, which under North Carolina's equitable distribution laws would be considered marital property. Money hidden, deliberately, on the advice of an attorney who was planning a divorce Nathan didn't know was coming. For the first time since he'd started listening, Nathan felt something beyond the cold stillness. He felt rage. Not the explosive kind, not the kind that makes a man throw things or raise his voice. A quiet rage, dense and patient, the kind that settles into your chest like concrete and hardens there, becoming a foundation you can build something on. Vanessa finished her call with Derek, a whispered goodbye, another love you that she apparently distributed as freely as business cards. Then she stood, gathered her things, and told the nurse at the station that she needed to run home for a few hours. Shower, change clothes, check on the house. The nurse assured her that Nathan was stable, and they'd call immediately if anything changed. The door closed. The room was quiet. Nathan opened his eyes again. This time, he kept them open longer. Studied the ceiling. Let his mind work through what he now knew. 1. His wife had been having an affair with a man named Derek for at least 5 months, probably longer, since before Hilton Head. Maybe since before the $9,200 dental procedure that never happened. 2. She had retained a divorce attorney named Kendra, who was advising her on timing, asset division, and strategy. The plan was to file while Nathan was still on disability, when his income was lowest and the financial disparity was greatest. 3. She had a hidden bank account at First Horizon with approximately $14,400 sexed in it, in her maiden name, with her mother as secondary. Marital funds diverted without disclosure. 4. She intended to claim the house, half the insurance settlement from his accident, and whatever she could take from his diminished retirement account. 5. She was going to use his own mother's affection for her as a character witness. 6. She had called him inadequate, boring, and insufficient in every way that mattered except the words she chose, which were worse. She'd reduced him to a financial equation and found him wanting. Nathan lay in that bed and let the rage harden. Let it set. Then he reached for the one thing within his grasp. The call button on his pillow. He pressed it. Claudette appeared 2 minutes later. "Mr. Carr?" She moved quickly, checking his monitors, leaning over him. "Can you hear me?" Nathan opened his eyes, looked directly at her, and spoke for the first time since the accident, his voice raw from disuse and the breathing tube they'd removed early that morning. "I need 2 things," he said. Claudette's eyes widened. She reached for the call button to page the doctor. "What do you need, sweetheart?" "A phone charger. And please don't tell my wife I'm awake." "Not yet." Claudette stared at him for a long moment. Something passed across her face. Recognition. Maybe. The look of a woman who had seen enough hospital rooms and enough marriages to understand that the second request explained itself. "The charger I can do," she said quietly. "As for your wife, the doctor will need to examine you. I can't keep a change in status off the chart. How long before the doctor comes?" "Dr. Anand does evening rounds at 6. Nathan checked the clock on the wall. 3:17 p.m., almost 3 hours. "I'll take it," he said. Claudette left and returned 4 minutes later with a charger and a look of careful neutrality. She plugged in his phone, helped him position it on the bed where he could reach it with his unbroken right hand, and said nothing else. She adjusted his pillow, checked his IV, and paused at the door. "Whatever you heard?" she said, not turning around. "I'm sorry." She left. The door closed softly. Nathan's phone powered on at 3:24 p.m. The cracked screen glowed with 47 notifications, missed calls, texts, emails. He ignored all of them. He opened his contacts and scrolled to a name he hadn't called in over a year but had never deleted. Marcus Hadley, attorney at law, Hadley and Brandt, downtown Charlotte. Nathan's college roommate at NC State, class of 2011. Marcus had been best man at Nathan's wedding. They drifted apart in the way men do when one's wife subtly discourages friendships she can't control. But Marcus had texted on Nathan's birthday every year without fail. The last one, 7 months ago, had said, "Hope you're doing well, brother. Call me if you ever need anything." "I mean that." Nathan dialed. Marcus answered on the 3rd ring. "Nathan? Jesus, man. I heard about the accident. Daniel called me this morning. How are you?" "I'm awake," Nathan said. "And I need a lawyer." The line went quiet for 2 beats. "Divorce? Worse. I'm listening." Nathan told him everything. Every word he'd heard. Every name. Every number. The hidden account. The attorney named Kendra. The plan to file during his disability. The affair with Derek. He spoke for 11 minutes without stopping, his voice steady and low, the voice of a man reporting facts rather than drowning in them. When he finished, Marcus exhaled slowly. "Nathan, how sure are you about the hidden account?" She said the amount. She said the bank. She said her mother's name is on it. She said it while sitting 3 feet from me thinking I couldn't hear. That's financial fraud in the context of a divorce. North Carolina takes that very seriously. If she's been diverting marital funds without disclosure, that alone could sink her case. "There's more," Nathan said. "The insurance settlement from the accident. She's planning to time the divorce to claim half of it." "Personal injury settlements in North Carolina are generally separate property," Marcus said immediately. "They belong to the injured spouse. But if she commingles it, puts it in a joint account, uses it for shared expenses, it gets murkier. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. What do I do? Right now, nothing visible. You stay in that bed. You stay unconscious as far as she's concerned. You let her keep talking. Every word she says is another nail." Marcus paused. "Can you record on your phone?" "I think so. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. You're the one party. If she's talking in your hospital room, you have every right to record. Start now. Record everything. Dates, times, content. I'll have my paralegal start pulling records tomorrow. Bank statements, credit card activity, phone records if we can get them." "Marcus?" "Yeah?" She called my mother a strategic asset. The silence on the line was thick enough to feel. Then we make sure your mother never has to know that, Marcus said. And we make sure Vanessa understands exactly what she's lost. Dr. Anand arrived at 6:04 p.m., 4 minutes ahead of schedule. Nathan heard him coming down the hallway, speaking to Claudette about a patient in room 418 who needed a catheter adjustment. Then the door opened, and Nathan made a decision he'd rehearsed in his mind 17 times during the preceding 2 hours. He opened his eyes, slowly. The way a man surfaces from genuine unconsciousness, blinking, confused, disoriented by the fluorescent light and the beeping and the sharp ache that lived in every part of his body simultaneously. Nathan? Dr. Anand leaned in, penlight moving across his pupils. Can you hear me? Where? Nathan let his voice crack. Let it come out rough and bewildered. It wasn't difficult. His throat was raw. His body was broken. The performance required almost nothing because the pain was entirely real. Only the timing was manufactured. You're at Carolina's medical center. You were in a car accident yesterday evening. You've sustained some serious injuries, but you're going to be okay. Dr. Anand's voice carried the practiced calm of a man who delivered news like this several times a week. Do you know your name, Nathan? Nathan Carr. Good. Do you know what day it is? Nathan paused as if searching through fog. Wednesday? It's Thursday. You've been unconscious for approximately 22 hours. That's normal given the severity of your concussion. I'm going to run some tests. Can you follow my finger with your eyes? He did. Tracking left, right, up, down. Dr. Anand tested his grip strength. His reflexes asked him to count backward from 10. Nathan performed each task with the slight delay and mild confusion of a man emerging from a medicated haze. Not sharp, not suspicious, just a patient waking up, grateful and disoriented. Your wife has been here all night, Dr. Anand said. She stepped out about an hour ago. We'll call her. She'll want to know you're awake. Thank you, Nathan said, and let his eyes close again. Not to pretend unconsciousness this time, but because the thought of Vanessa's face when she walked through that door, the mask of relief and love she'd wear, the performance she'd deliver for the doctor and the nurses and herself, made him need a moment to keep his own mask intact. Claudette made the call. Vanessa arrived at 6:38 p.m. Nathan heard her before he saw her. The rapid click of her heels in the hallway, accelerating, the door swinging open. The gasp. Oh my God, Nathan. Baby. She was at his bedside in 3 steps, her hands on his face, his unbroken hand, his chest. He opened his eyes and saw her. Vanessa Carr, 34 years old. Dark hair freshly washed, blown straight the way she wore it for work presentations and, apparently, hospital performances. She'd changed into jeans and a cream-colored sweater. The sage green scarf from Nordstrom was draped over her shoulders. Tears were already forming, and they looked genuine. That was what struck Nathan the hardest. The tears looked real because Vanessa had practiced being someone she wasn't for so long that the practice itself had become indistinguishable from sincerity. Hey, Nathan said. His voice was rough. He didn't have to fake the weakness. What happened? You were in an accident. A truck hit you on I-85. You've been out since last night. I've been here the whole time. I was so scared, Nathan, I thought. Her voice broke. She pressed her forehead to his hand. I thought I was going to lose you. He watched the top of her head, the precise part in her hair, the faint scent of the $42 shampoo she bought from the salon on Providence Road. He let his unbroken hand rest on her hair, the gesture of a husband comforting his wife. A gesture he'd made 1,000 times before that now felt like handling something fragile and poisonous. I'm okay, he said. You're not okay. Your arm, your ribs. The doctor said you need surgery tomorrow. She lifted her face and her eyes were red-rimmed, swimming with tears. But you're awake. You're here. That's all that matters. Nathan looked at her, really looked at her, and he understood something about Vanessa that he'd never grasped before. She wasn't a woman who had suddenly decided to betray him. She was a woman who had been performing for so long that the performance was all that remained. The tears were real because the situation genuinely frightened her. Not the fear of losing her husband, but the fear of her plan being disrupted, of the timeline shifting, of complications that would make the careful architecture of her exit more difficult to execute. Is anyone else here? Nathan asked, his voice deliberately groggy. Your brother Daniel is driving down tomorrow, and I called your mom. She wants to come, but the drive from Asheville is hard on her. I told her to wait until after your surgery, when you're more settled. Thank you, Nathan said, for taking care of everything. Vanessa squeezed his hand. That's what I'm here for. The phrase lingered in the air between them. Nathan closed his eyes, feigning exhaustion, and let Vanessa settle back into her chair. Under the blanket, beside his right hip, his phone continued recording. The red dot on the screen pulsed silently, counting the minutes of a marriage's final chapter. The surgery happened Friday morning at 7:42 a.m. Dr. Bassett, an orthopedic surgeon with 23 years of experience and hands Nathan would later describe as disturbingly steady, installed 2 titanium plates and 9 screws in Nathan's left forearm. The procedure took 2 hours and 14 minutes. Nathan spent 3 hours in post-op recovery before being returned to his room, groggy from anesthesia and genuinely unable to pretend much of anything. Vanessa was there when they wheeled him back. She held his hand, spoke softly, adjusted his pillows. She was excellent at this. The physical gestures of care. The surface-level attentiveness that anyone watching would call devotion. The nurses commented on it. Claudette told Daniel, who had arrived that morning, that Vanessa hadn't left the hospital since Thursday evening. This wasn't true. Nathan knew Vanessa had gone home Thursday night and hadn't returned until his call from Dr. Anand. But he said nothing. Daniel stood at the foot of the bed, red-eyed and thick-voiced, and told Nathan he looked like hell. You should see the other guy. Nathan managed, and Daniel laughed the loud, relieved laugh of a man who'd been terrified his brother might not wake up. The truck driver's insurance company already called, Daniel said. Some adjuster named Whitfield. I told him to go through Vanessa. She's handling the legal stuff. Nathan's eyes moved to Vanessa. She was on the far side of the room, arranging flowers that Daniel had brought, a $34 bouquet from Harris Teeter with a card that said, "Get well, brother." Her back was to them. Actually, Nathan said, keeping his voice casual, medicated, slow. I'd rather handle the insurance stuff myself when I'm feeling up to it. No need to put all that on Vanessa. Vanessa turned. Something flickered across her face. Not alarm, more like recalculation. The momentary pause of a chess player whose opponent has moved a piece in an unexpected direction. Babe, you need to focus on recovery. I don't mind handling the paperwork. I know you don't, Nathan said, but you've already got so much on your plate. Your job, the house, taking care of me. Let me deal with the insurance when I'm ready. It'll give me something to do while I'm stuck in bed. He watched her process this, watched the calculation move behind her eyes. Objecting too strongly would look suspicious. Agreeing too readily would surrender control of a settlement she was counting as half hers. She chose the middle path. Sure, honey. Whatever you're comfortable with. I just don't want you stressing about money while you're healing. I won't, Nathan said. I promise. Daniel left that evening. Vanessa stayed through dinner, feeding Nathan jello and broth with the tenderness of a woman auditioning for a role she intended to play for exactly 2 more months. At 8:30, she kissed his forehead and told him she needed to go home, get some real sleep, be back first thing in the morning. Of course, Nathan said. You've done so much already. She left at 8:47. Nathan waited 4 minutes, watching the door, listening for her footsteps to fade completely. Then he picked up his phone and called Marcus. She's gone. What have you found? Marcus had been busy. In the 30 hours since Nathan's first call, his paralegal, a meticulous woman named Trisha Bates, who charged $175 an hour and earned every cent of it, had pulled preliminary records that painted a picture Nathan hadn't been prepared for. The hidden account at First Horizon is real, Marcus said. We pulled a financial disclosure from public records related to the mortgage refinance she initiated in August. She listed her assets. The First Horizon account wasn't on it. That's a material omission on a financial instrument. If she did the same during the original mortgage application, we've got fraud. What else? The $9,200 dental procedure. I had Trisha call every oral surgeon and periodontist in the Charlotte metro area. Nobody has a record of treating Vanessa Carr or Vanessa Aldridge in the past 2 years. No claims were filed with your dental insurance through Hargrove and Dunn either. I checked. The money came out of your 401k hardship withdrawal, went into your joint checking, and was transferred to an account we're still tracing. My guess is it went to the First Horizon account, or it paid for something she doesn't want you to know about. Nathan's jaw tightened. Like what? Could be anything. Retainer for the attorney. Deposit on an apartment. A gift for Derek. We'll find it. What about Derek? Who is he? Derek Hollis, 38. Regional sales manager at Galbraith Pharmaceuticals, which is the parent company of the division Vanessa works for. He's her direct supervisor's peer. Not technically in her chain of command, but close enough that most HR departments would flag it. Divorced in 2022 from a woman named Claire Hollis, who got the house in Ballantyne and primary custody of their 2 kids. Claire's divorce filing cited infidelity. No name specified, but the timeline overlaps with Vanessa's employment at Galbraith, which started in January 2022. Nathan closed his eyes. Not performing this time. Just tired. Exhausted in a way that went beyond the physical, beyond the broken bones and the surgery and the hospital bed. The exhaustion of discovering that the person you built your life around had been systematically dismantling it from the inside while you held the door open for her every morning. Nathan, there's something else. Tell me, your homeowner's insurance policy. You're listed as primary, Vanessa as secondary. But 6 weeks ago, she contacted your insurance agent, a guy named Phil Wendt at State Farm, and requested an increase in the dwelling coverage from $289,000 to $425,000. She also added a rider for personal property worth $75,000, which more than doubled the premium. The new annual premium is $3,840, up from $1,670. The increase was processed, and the first adjusted payment has already been drafted from your joint checking. She increased the insurance without telling me. She signed your name on the authorization form. Phil Wendt's office has the document. I haven't obtained it yet, but when we do, if that signature doesn't match yours, that's forgery. On an insurance document. That's a felony in North Carolina, Nathan. The room was quiet except for the monitor. Nathan stared at the ceiling. The same white ceiling he'd been staring at for 2 days. The same ceiling under which his wife had made phone calls and laid plans and whispered love to another man and calculated the value of Nathan's broken body in terms of disability payments and insurance settlements. What do you need me to do? Nathan asked. Keep recording. Keep listening. Don't change a single thing about how you interact with her. The longer she believes you're oblivious, the more she'll reveal. I'm going to file a motion to preserve assets on Monday. It'll be sealed. She won't know about it. We're also going to open individual bank accounts in your name only and reroute your direct deposit from Hargrove and Dunn the moment your disability payments start. We don't want a single dollar going into that joint account that she can divert. What about Kendra, her attorney? Kendra Voss, solo practitioner, office on South Boulevard. She specializes in high-asset divorce, which tells you Vanessa's been planning this for a while. Kendra's aggressive but not especially creative. She plays the income disparity card hard, and usually wins because most husbands in these cases don't know what's coming until the papers are served. You have an advantage she's never dealt with. What's that? You heard the whole playbook. Every move, every number, every strategy. She laid it out 3 feet from your head while you were supposedly in a coma. That doesn't happen. That never happens. Most guys in your position are blindsided. You're not. You're ahead of her, Nathan. You're ahead of both of them. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Marcus, what about the accident? The insurance settlement? I've been thinking about that. The other driver, Curtis Vega, was clearly at fault. He was on his phone. There's a police report confirming it, and the dash cam from the car behind you captured the whole thing. His insurance carrier, State Farm, has a policy limit of $250,000. Your underinsured motorist coverage adds another $100,000. Total potential settlement is $350,000. Personal injury settlements in North Carolina are the separate property of the injured spouse. Vanessa has no legal claim to that money. None. But Kendra Voss apparently told her otherwise, which means either Kendra is incompetent or Vanessa heard what she wanted to hear. $350,000. Nathan repeated. Give or take, medical bills will eat some of it. Your hospital stay alone at Carolina's Medical Center standard rates will be somewhere between $47,000 and $62,000, depending on the length of stay and the surgery. But most of that will be covered by the at-fault driver's insurance before the settlement is even calculated. Your net recovery, after medical liens and attorney fees, could be in the range of $210,000 to $275,000, and that's yours. Not hers. Not theirs. Yours. Nathan thought about the $15,000 down payment he'd put on the house. The 3 years of paying the larger share of the mortgage. The $9,200 stolen from his retirement for a dental procedure that never existed. The $14,400 hidden in a secret bank account while he drove a 9-year-old Honda and packed his lunch every day in a brown paper bag because Vanessa said they needed to be careful with money. Careful with money. She'd been careful, all right. Carefully diverting it into her escape fund while Nathan clipped coupons for the grocery store. One more thing, Marcus said. The affair. North Carolina is one of 7 states that still recognizes alienation of affection as a civil cause of action. If we can prove Derek Hollis intentionally interfered with your marriage, you can sue him. Personally, for damages. How much? Depends on the jury. But alienation of affection verdicts in North Carolina have gone as high as $8 and $8 million. Typical awards range from $50,000 to $500,000. Given Derek's income, which is approximately $142,000 base plus commissions, a jury might be very interested in a man who systematically pursued a married woman, encouraged her to hide assets, and helped plan the financial destruction of her husband while that husband was recovering from a near-fatal car accident. Nathan let that settle. He wasn't a vindictive man. He had never been. He was the man who shoveled the neighbor's driveway without being asked. The man who stayed late at work because the project mattered, not because anyone was watching. The man who had driven his mother to every medical appointment for 3 years after her hip replacement, because that's what sons do. But he was also, as of this week, a man who understood something fundamental that he'd been too trusting to see before. Goodness without boundaries is just an invitation to be used. And Nathan was done being used. File everything, Nathan said. Asset preservation, the individual accounts, the investigation into the dental fraud. And start building the alienation of affection case against Derek. You're sure, Marcus? She sat next to my hospital bed and told her boyfriend that my accident was a window. She's planning to drain me while I'm still in a cast. She forged my name on an insurance document. She stole $9,200 from my retirement account. And she told her mother she was going to use my own mother's love as a weapon in court. The line was quiet. Yeah, Marcus said. I'm sure too. I'll have the preliminary filings ready by Monday. Get some rest. And Nathan? Yeah, keep pretending. The longer she talks, the deeper she digs her own grave. Let her dig. Nathan ended the call at 9:23 p.m. He set his phone under the blanket, screen down, still recording even though the room was empty. Habit now. The habit of a man who had learned in the worst possible way that the only evidence you can trust is the evidence you collect yourself. He lay in the dark hospital room and let himself feel it. All of it. Not the calculated stillness of the past 2 days, not the strategic patience that Marcus was cultivating, but the raw, unprocessed grief of a man whose marriage was over. 9 years. The wedding at the Botanical Garden in Charlotte, 70 guests, a string quartet playing Pachelbel while Vanessa walked toward him, in a $2,800 dress her mother had insisted on, and Nathan had paid half for without complaint. The honeymoon in Savannah, 4 nights at a bed and breakfast that cost $189 a night and felt like the most extravagant thing they'd ever done. The first year in the apartment on Monroe Road, eating spaghetti on the floor because they hadn't bought a dining table yet, laughing at the absurdity of being adults who owned a mortgage but not furniture. Those years had been real. Nathan was certain of that. Whatever Vanessa had become, whatever she was planning now, there had been a time when the love was genuine. When she'd looked at him across that bare apartment floor with sauce on her chin and said, "This is the happiest I've ever been," he'd believed her then. He believed even now that she'd meant it. But somewhere between the spaghetti on the floor and the hidden bank account and the whispered phone calls to Derek Hollis, Vanessa had decided that happiness wasn't enough. That Nathan's steady, modest, uncomplaining love wasn't enough. That $78,400 a year and a colonial in Mint Hill and a husband who rebuilt the deck with his own hands wasn't enough. She'd looked at the life they'd built and found it wanting, and instead of telling him, instead of giving him the chance to fight for what they had, she'd chosen to hollow it out from the inside while he stood in the shell and thought the walls were solid. Nathan cried then. Quietly, in the dark, the way men cry when they don't want anyone to hear. The Tears ran into the bandage on his forehead and stung the stitches, and he let them. Because this was the last time he would cry for Vanessa Carr. The last time he would grieve for a woman who had already left him months ago without the decency of saying goodbye. Nathan was discharged from Carolina's Medical Center on a Tuesday morning, 6 days after the accident. The hospital bill, before insurance adjustments, totaled $58,417. That included the ER admission, the MRI and CT scans. Dr. Bassett's surgery for $14,200. The titanium hardware in his arm at $3,800, 6 nights in a semi-private room at $2,900 per night, and a pharmacy bill for pain medications, anti-inflammatories, and antibiotics that ran $1,340. The at-fault driver's insurance would cover most of it. Nathan had already spoken to their adjuster, a woman named Diane Whitfield, who'd been professional and apologetic and had asked him not to retain an attorney yet, which told Nathan everything he needed to know about how much they intended to lowball his settlement. He'd passed her name to Marcus, who'd assigned the personal injury component to a colleague named Victor Reyes, a former insurance defense attorney who'd switched sides and now specialized in making carriers pay exactly what they owed. Vanessa drove him home in her car, a 2023 Lexus NX 350h she'd leased for $487 a month. She'd told Nathan the lease payment was $389. He knew the real number now because Marcus's paralegal, Trisha Bates, had pulled the lease agreement from the dealership's records. The $98 monthly difference was small, almost insignificant in the scope of everything else, but it was representative. A marriage built on 100 small deceptions, each one too minor to question, accumulating into a structure of lies that looked, from the outside, exactly like a life. The house in Mint Hill looked the same. The deck Nathan had rebuilt. The driveway he'd sealed himself last fall, spending $127 on sealant and an entire Saturday on his hands and knees because the contractor wanted 400 yards and Nathan thought that was absurd. The flower beds Vanessa had planted in the spring, the only outdoor project she'd ever undertaken, photographed extensively for Instagram, then abandoned by July when the maintenance stopped being photogenic. Nathan walked through the front door with his left arm in a sling, his ribs wrapped, and 31 stitches in his forehead that made him look like a man who'd lost a fight with a windshield, which technically he had. Vanessa guided him to the couch, arranged pillows, brought him water, set his medications on the coffee table with a handwritten schedule she'd prepared on a note card. Every 4 hours for the oxycodone, she said, every 6 for the anti-inflammatory. I'll set alarms on my phone. Thank you, Nathan said. He looked around the living room at the furniture they'd picked out together at Rooms to Go during a President's Day sale 3 years ago, the $1,299 sectional and the $449 entertainment center. On the shelf above the TV sat their wedding photo, Nathan in a rented tux, Vanessa in the $2,800 dress. Both of them grinning at the camera with the ignorant joy of two people who had no idea what they were building or how it would end. I took the rest of the week off work, Vanessa said, settling into the armchair across from him. Derek approved it immediately. He's been so understanding about everything. Derek. She said his name the way you'd mention a casual colleague. Flat, unremarkable. The way she'd been saying it for a year, training Nathan's ear to hear nothing significant in the syllables. That's nice of him, Nathan said. He's a good guy. Yeah. The first 2 weeks at home followed a pattern. Vanessa played caretaker with visible dedication. She cooked meals Nathan didn't know she knew how to make. She drove him to his follow-up appointment with Dr. Bassett, who said the plates were holding well and cleared him to begin gentle range of motion exercises in 4 weeks. She managed his medication schedule without missing a dose. She was, by every observable metric, the ideal spouse of a recovering man. She also left the house every Tuesday and Thursday evening for what she told Nathan were yoga classes, at a studio called Centered Soul on Park Road. The classes cost $22 per session. Nathan knew this because Vanessa had mentioned the price once, offhandedly. The way she mentioned things she wanted him to remember so he wouldn't question the line item on the credit card statement. Except Centered Soul's schedule, which Nathan checked on his phone one Tuesday evening while Vanessa was gone, showed no classes on Tuesday or Thursday nights. Their evening programming was Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. The studio was closed on Tuesday and Thursday after 5 p.m. Nathan screenshotted the schedule, sent it to Marcus. Said nothing to Vanessa when she came home at 9:40 p.m., with her hair slightly different than when she'd left, and the faint scent of cologne on her jacket that was not Nathan's, because Nathan hadn't worn cologne since the accident, and the bottle of $38 Acqua di Gio he kept on his dresser hadn't been touched in 3 weeks. "How was yoga?" he asked from the couch. "Amazing," Vanessa said, stretching theatrically. "My instructor says my flexibility has really improved." "I bet," Nathan said, and she didn't catch the edge because she wasn't listening for one. Marcus, meanwhile, was building a case that would have made an architect weep with its structural integrity. Trisha Bates had obtained 3 months of statements from the joint checking account, which showed a pattern of 1,200 transfers on the first of every month to an account ending in 7,741. That was the First Horizon account. The one Vanessa had described to Derek in the hospital room. The one in her maiden name with her mother Elaine as secondary holder. The $9,200 from Nathan's 401k hardship withdrawal had been traced. It went into the joint checking on March 14th of the previous year. Sat there for 4 days, then was transferred in 2 installments. $5,000 to the First Horizon account and $4,200 to a Venmo payment to an account belonging to someone named Kendra Voss. The attorney. The $4,200 was a retainer. Vanessa had used money from Nathan's retirement account to hire a divorce lawyer a full year before she intended to file. When Marcus told him this on the phone, Nathan said nothing for 30 seconds. "A year," he finally said. "At least." The retainer was paid in March of last year. That means Kendra's been advising her since at least then. Every trip, every conference, every financial move she's made in the past 12 months has been under legal guidance designed to position her for maximum advantage in a divorce. "While I was visiting my mother in Asheville." "What do you mean?" "Last March. The same week the 401k withdrawal cleared. I was in Asheville for 4 days because my mom had her follow-up hip appointment and needed someone to drive her. Vanessa said she couldn't come because of work. She encouraged me to go, said she'd hold down the fort. She was holding down the fort all right. She paid the retainer while you were out of town caring for your mother." Nathan stared at the ceiling of his living room, the same ceiling he'd repainted himself in 2022, 2 coats of Benjamin Moore Swiss coffee at $67 a gallon, because Vanessa said the original builder's white was depressing. "How much is in the hidden account now?" Nathan asked. $18,600 as of last week's statement. She increased the monthly transfer to $1,500 starting in January. "And the insurance rider she forged?" Phil Went's office confirmed the signature doesn't match your known signatures from the original policy. "We have a handwriting analyst on retainer, $450 for a preliminary report, who'll confirm it formally. That's document fraud. Combined with the financial diversion, the undisclosed account, and the forged insurance document, Vanessa is looking at potential criminal charges independent of the divorce. I don't want her in jail, Marcus." "I know. But the threat of criminal referral is significant leverage in a settlement negotiation. Kendra Voss knows that. When she sees what we have, she's going to advise Vanessa to settle fast and quietly." "What about Derek?" "Alienation of affection suit is ready to file. Victor Reyes looked at it and says we have one of the strongest cases he's seen. We have recordings from the hospital, phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between Vanessa and Derek during your marriage, the hotel in Hilton Head, the Tuesday and Thursday visits to his apartment instead of yoga classes. Claire Hollis, Derek's ex-wife, has agreed to provide a deposition confirming his history of pursuing married women. She's been waiting for someone to hold him accountable. How much are we asking for?" Victor recommends filing for $750,000, will likely settle for $250,000 to $350,000. Derek earns $142,000 base with commissions pushing him to $190,000 in a good year. He's got a 401k worth about $310,000 in equity in a condo he bought after his divorce for $285,000. He can pay. And when he sees the evidence, he will pay, because the alternative is a jury trial in Mecklenburg County where 12 people listened to recordings of him coaching a married woman to hide assets from her injured husband. Nathan exhaled slowly. The ribs still ached. They would for another month. But the pain was becoming familiar, almost companionable. A reminder that he was alive, and that being alive meant dealing with things that hurt. "When do we move?" Nathan asked. "Your disability payments started last week, $3,627 a month, deposited into the new individual account at Wells Fargo that Vanessa doesn't know about. The personal injury settlement is progressing. Victor thinks State Farm will offer $190,000 initially and will counter at $340,000. We'll probably land around $260,000 to $285,000 after medical liens and fees. That money goes directly to you, separate property, untouchable. And the divorce? I recommend we file first. Beat her to it. She's planning to serve you in May. If we file in April, we control the narrative. The filing will include a full accounting of the hidden assets, the forged insurance document, and the diverted retirement funds. Kendra Voss will receive our evidence package the same day. When she sees what we have, the conversation changes completely. Can we do it before she knows I know? That's exactly what we're going to do. We file on a Thursday. Vanessa gets served at her office on Friday morning. The alienation of affection suit against Derek gets filed simultaneously. He gets served at his office the same day. They find out at the same time. No chance to coordinate. No chance to align their stories. No chance to destroy evidence. Nathan nodded, though Marcus couldn't see it. Do it. April 11th was a Thursday. Nathan chose it deliberately. It was the 9-year anniversary of their first date. Miniature golf at Frankie's Fun Park, followed by burgers at Bad Daddy's. The date had cost $47 total, and Nathan had thought he was the luckiest man in Charlotte. He didn't tell Vanessa the significance of the date. She'd forgotten it years ago. Their wedding anniversary was in June, and that was the only date she tracked, primarily because it determined the timing of the gift she expected. That Thursday morning, Nathan sat at the kitchen table, his arms still in a reduced sling, his ribs tender but manageable. He drank his Folgers from the same ceramic mug he'd used for 6 years, the one with the chipped handle that Vanessa kept threatening to throw away. At 8:15 a.m., Vanessa came downstairs in her charcoal blazer and cream blouse, her hair pulled back, her phone already in her hand. "I've got a regional meeting all day," she said, pouring coffee into her travel mug. The $34 Yeti tumbler Derek had given her for Christmas, that she'd told Nathan came from a coworker's Secret Santa exchange. "Might be late. Don't wait up." "Okay," Nathan said. "Have a good day." She kissed his forehead, the one with the scar from 31 stitches, now healed to a thin pink line that would fade with time. Everything fades with time. "Love you," she said. "You too," Nathan replied, and it was the last lie he would ever tell her. Vanessa's car backed out of the driveway at 8:23 a.m. At 8:24, Nathan picked up his phone and sent a single text to Marcus. Green light. At 10:07 a.m., a process server named Dale Winslow walked into the offices of Galbraith Pharmaceuticals on Fairview Road and asked to speak with Vanessa Carr. He was directed to Conference Room B, where Vanessa was mid-presentation, standing in front of a slide deck about Q1 market penetration for a new cholesterol medication. 12 colleagues sat around the table. Vanessa's supervisor, a woman named Patricia Chen, was in the chair closest to the screen. Dale Winslow waited in the lobby. When Vanessa emerged at 10:34, he approached. "Vanessa Carr?" "Yes?" He handed her the envelope. "You've been served." Vanessa's face didn't change immediately. She'd been served documents before in her professional life, subpoenas related to pharmaceutical compliance, and the gesture itself wasn't alarming. She opened the envelope casually. Read the first page, then the second, then her hands began to shake. The filing was comprehensive, 14 pages of petition with 47 pages of exhibits. Marcus had organized it with surgical precision. The complaint alleged adultery, financial fraud, forgery, and diversion of marital assets. Exhibit A was the transcript of Vanessa's phone call with Derek from Nathan's hospital room with timestamps. Exhibit B was the phone call with her mother detailing the strategy to manipulate Nathan's mother as a character witness. Exhibit C was the First Horizon bank statements showing 14 months of diverted funds totaling $18,600. Exhibit D was the traced $4,200 retainer payment to Kendra Voss from Nathan's 401k withdrawal. Exhibit E was the forged insurance authorization with a preliminary handwriting analysis showing a 94% probability that the signature was not Nathan's. At 10:41 a.m., 7 minutes after Vanessa was served, a second process server entered the same building and asked for Derek Hollis. Derek was at his desk on the 4th floor. He received 2 envelopes. The first was a notice that he'd been named as a correspondent in the Carr divorce. The second was the alienation of affection lawsuit filed by Nathan Carr, seeking $750,000 in damages for the intentional destruction of his marriage. Nathan knew the exact minute both servings happened because Marcus had coordinated with both process servers and received confirmation texts. At 10:43, Marcus called. "It's done, both served." Vanessa in a conference room. Derek at his desk. The divorce filing and the alienation suit are on the Mecklenburg County docket as of 9 a.m. this morning. "Thank you, Marcus." "Nathan, she's going to call you. Probably within minutes. Are you ready?" "I've been ready for 31 days. The call came at 10:51 a.m. Nathan let it ring 3 times, then answered. "Nathan." Vanessa's voice was a register he'd never heard. Not the practiced warmth, not the calculated concern. Raw, stripped. The voice of a woman whose walls had just come down without warning. "What is this? What did you do?" "I filed for divorce," Nathan said. His voice was even. Calm. The voice of a man who had rehearsed this moment every night for a month while lying next to a woman who thought he was sleeping. "I also filed an alienation of affection lawsuit against Derek Hollis." "How do you? You can't. This isn't..." She was stuttering. For the first time in the 9 years Nathan had known her, Vanessa Carr had no script prepared, no strategy, no chess move calculated 3 turns ahead. "Nathan, we need to talk about this. Come home." "I'll leave work right now. We can." "No." The words sat between them like a closed door. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean there's nothing to discuss. You've been having an affair with Derek Hollis for at least a year. You retained a divorce attorney 12 months ago using money you stole from my retirement account. You've been hiding $18,600 in a secret bank account at First Horizon. You forged my signature on an insurance document. And you sat next to my hospital bed while I was recovering from a near-fatal car accident and told your boyfriend that my injuries were a window for you to maximize your divorce settlement." Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. That presses against the walls of a phone connection and makes both people aware that something irreversible has just happened. "You were awake," Vanessa whispered. "I was awake. The whole time." Enough of it. Another silence. Longer. Nathan heard her breathing change. Heard something crack behind it. Not tears. Something structural. The sound of a strategy collapsing. "Nathan, you don't understand. Derek and I. It wasn't planned. It happened. I was unhappy. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if I could just..." "Vanessa," he said her name, "the way you close a book. Final. Complete. You sat 3 feet from my broken body and calculated how much I was worth on disability. You told your mother you were going to weaponize mine. You laughed with your boyfriend about how oblivious I was. And you stole from me. Not just money, time, trust. 9 years of my life that I gave you honestly, while you spent the last 12 months planning how to take everything and leave. I planned to. It's not as simple as you're making it sound. It's exactly as simple as I'm making it sound. You made choices. Every day for a year, you woke up next to me and chose to lie. Every dinner we ate, every conversation we had, every time you told me you loved me, you were running numbers in your head about how to maximize what you'd take when you left. Those were choices, Vanessa. Hundreds of them. And now the consequences of those choices are in a filing at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse." He heard her sit down. Heard the leather of a chair. She was still at the office. "The forged insurance document," Nathan continued. "That's a felony. Marcus says he can refer it to the district attorney if we choose to. We haven't decided yet." "Nathan, please. Don't. I'm not going to prison you, Vanessa. I'm not trying to destroy your life. But I'm also not going to let you destroy mine. My attorney will contact Kendra Voss today. The settlement terms are straightforward. I keep the house. You forfeit all claim to my personal injury settlement, which is separate property under North Carolina law, regardless of what Kendra told you. The $18,600 in the hidden account is returned to the marital estate for equitable division, and you walk away clean. No criminal referral. No public airing of the recordings. And Derek, the alienation of affection suit stands. That's between me and him. He pursued a married woman, coached her to hide assets, and helped plan the financial destruction of a man recovering from a car accident. A jury in Mecklenburg County is going to have opinions about that. He'll lose everything. He should have thought about that before he started sleeping with someone else's wife." Vanessa was crying now. Nathan could hear it. Real tears. Not the practice kind from the hospital room, the uncontrolled, ugly kind that comes when a person finally confronts the full scope of what they've done and what it's going to cost. "I did love you," she said through the tears. "At the beginning, I really did." "I know," Nathan said. "That's the part that hurts the most." He hung up, set the phone on the kitchen table, looked at the ceramic mug with the chipped handle, looked at the wedding photo on the shelf, looked at the house he'd patched and painted and rebuilt with his own hands, while the woman who lived in it was planning her departure. Then Nathan Carr, 36 years old, civil engineer, broken arm, cracked ribs, 31 stitches faded to a scar, stood up from the kitchen table and walked out onto the deck he'd built. The March air was cool and clean. The yard needed mowing. The flower beds Vanessa had abandoned were bare. He'd plant something new there, something that lasted. The divorce was finalized in 11 weeks. Kendra Voss, upon reviewing the evidence package Marcus sent over, called Vanessa and told her, in what Marcus later described as the most diplomatically worded professional panic he'd ever witnessed, that contesting this would be catastrophic. They settled. Nathan kept the house. Vanessa returned $18,600 to the marital estate, which was then divided equitably. The $401K withdrawal of $9,200 was reclassified as Vanessa's separate debt, reducing Nathan's obligation in the asset split. The forged insurance document was not referred to the district attorney, per the agreement, but Phil Went's office canceled the fraudulent policy increase and restored the original premium. The personal injury settlement came through in July. State Farm offered $195,000 initially. Victor Reyes countered at $340,000 with medical documentation and the dashcam footage. They settled at $271,000 after medical liens and fees. The money went into Nathan's individual account, separate property, untouched. The alienation of affection case against Derek Hollis went to mediation in August. Derek's attorney, a man who charged $475 an hour and looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, reviewed the hospital recordings, the phone records, the testimony from Derek's ex-wife Claire, and the text messages Marcus had subpoenaed showing Derek explicitly advising Vanessa to time her divorce filing to coincide with Nathan's disability period. They settled for $285,000, paid in structured installments over 3 years. Derek sold his condo to make the first payment. Vanessa left Charlotte, moved to Raleigh, where Galbraith Pharmaceuticals had a regional office. She was not fired, but she was transferred, and the transfer carried the unspoken understanding that her career trajectory at the company had permanently changed. Nathan heard from mutual friends that she was in therapy, that she'd broken off all contact with Derek, that she'd told someone at a dinner party that the worst thing she'd ever done was underestimate the man she'd married. Nathan's mother, Janet, drove down from Asheville the weekend after the divorce was final. She sat on the deck Nathan had built and drank sweet tea and didn't ask many questions. She'd learned the broad strokes from Daniel and had processed them with the quiet dignity of a woman who'd survived worse, and understood that some hurts don't need to be discussed to be understood. "You're going to be okay," she said, watching the sunset over the Mint Hill rooftops. "I know, Mom. You always were the strong one. Your father left, and you were 7 years old, and you didn't cry. You just asked me what was for dinner. I thought it was shock, but it wasn't. It was you deciding that whatever happened, you were going to keep going. You were going to eat dinner and go to school and build your life without letting the people who left define you." Nathan looked at his mother, 63 years old, $2,340 a month, a paid-off house in Asheville. A son who called every Sunday and visited every month and had never once, not once, let her feel like she was a burden. "She was going to use you," Nathan said quietly, "in court. She told her mother she was going to use your love for her as evidence of her character." Janet Carr took a slow sip of her tea. "Sweetheart," she said, "I raised 2 boys alone on a teacher's salary. I've dealt with school boards, insurance companies, and a man who promised me forever and left before his younger son could tie his shoes. Vanessa Carr was not going to outmaneuver me. She just never got the chance to find that out." Nathan laughed. It was the first real laugh in 2 months, and it came from a place so deep it surprised him. Janet smiled and patted his knee, and they sat together on the deck in the fading light. 2 people who understood that love doesn't have to be loud or expensive or dramatic to be the strongest force in the room. 8 months after the accident, Nathan stood in the bathroom mirror and studied the scar on his forehead. It had faded to a thin silver line. Barely visible unless you knew to look, the arm was healed, full range of motion restored, though it ached in cold weather, and probably always would. The ribs had been fine since June. The house was different now, just changed in the small ways that reflected a man living on his own terms for the first time in almost a decade. The wedding photo was gone from the shelf, stored in a box in the attic, not thrown away. The entertainment center held his books now. He'd bought a record player at a consignment shop for $85 and a collection of vinyl from a retiring music teacher who lived 2 streets over. He cooked dinner for himself every night, nothing elaborate honest meals a man makes when he's feeding his own hunger instead of performing for an audience. He'd gone back to work in June. Martin Hargrove had held his position. The bridge project in Gastonia was finished, on time, under budget. Nathan had been promoted to senior project manager in September, the position he'd turned down 2 years ago because Vanessa didn't want to move. The salary was $96,500. He didn't need to move. The position had opened up in the Charlotte office. He thought about Vanessa less than he expected. Not because the pain wasn't real, but because the pain had served its purpose. It had burned away something that needed burning, the naive belief that trust should be given freely without verification. Nathan still believed in trust. Still believed in love, in partnership, in the possibility of building something real with another person. But he understood now that trust is a living thing. It needs to be maintained, checked, reinforced. His phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. A text from Daniel, Hawks game Saturday. You in? Nathan typed back, I'm in. He set the phone down, looked at the scar one more time, and walked out into the morning. The deck needed staining, the flower beds needed planting. And Nathan Carr, 37 now, had a life to build.